can you guys tell me a little bit about your background in martial arts, like how you guys got started and what you've trained in?
Go ahead, Brandon. Yeah, so this is Brandon.
Okay.
I started in the early 90s with Taekwondo. Um, was a fan of martial art movies growing up, and that just was the most accessible thing for me to get into. It wasn't necessarily the martial art that of my dreams, but it was what was accessible. So I started in that and kind of fell in love with it and became very competitive with it. In 1993, I went to the Junior Olympics and brought back the gold medal to Utah, um, and thought that I was pretty much a total ninja that had the answer to every combative situation. And then a friend of mine got into an altercation with a couple of guys from school who drank and smoked and never trained a day in their life, and we didn't fare so well. And it forced me to really kind of reevaluate the effectiveness of, what I was dedicating so much time and energy to. And right about that same time, I saw the movie Kickboxer with Jean-Claude Van Damme and was sure that that was the martial art I needed to answer all of the combative situations of the world. And ironically, one of Utah's first Muay Thai gyms just opened up right about the same time that all of those experiences happened. So I transitioned from Taekwondo over to Muay Thai gym and trained there for a little while and got really, really into that and was loving it. And then the UFC was coming out, and I saw the first UFC and wasn't totally convinced that grappling was superior to stand-up fighting, but it certainly caught my attention. And then a good friend of mine named Jared went and signed up for some Gracie Jiu-Jitsu lessons from Pedro Sauer. And by this point, I had been training for about 7 years, very extensively and competitively in stand-up martial arts. And after 3 months of him training, we decided to get together and have our own UFC between the two of us in his basement. And he immediately took me down to the ground and tapped me out at will. And he was a white belt without even his first stripe. And then I was totally convinced that I needed to cross-train and become more well-rounded and incorporate, the grappling art. So I heard that there was one person in the state of Utah that could be considered an expert in both stand-up and ground fighting and even weaponry, and that was Wilbur Nollis. And I sought him out, and he was a certified instructor in Jeet Kune Do, in Filipino martial arts, and in addition to that was also one of the more competitive and senior guys at Pedro Sauer's school in Jiu-Jitsu, and also was a certified instructor in Thai boxing. So I had finally, after all those years, kind of finally found what I was looking for, which was somebody that could teach me to truly be proficient in, all different types of martial arts and ranges of fighting. And through him, I was introduced to Eric Paulson when I expressed an interest in becoming more competitive in the MMA world. And Eric Paulson was based out of LA, and I've been training with Wilbur Nollis and Eric Paulson ever since.
And how old were you at this time when you first started with Taekwondo?
Early 90s, I would have been about 11 years old.
Okay. And how old are you now?
I'm 34.
Okay, so you've had 13 years of training under you?
23
Oh.
years.
Sorry. That's
No,
embarrassing.
that's okay.
I don't know why I was thinking 13. Okay. And so, Brandon, what's your story? How'd you get started in? Brian.
Kind of same deal as Brandon, although, part of it was more, what would I call it? It had more to do with where I live. Being in Utah, there aren't very many Japanese Americans, let alone, Asians. And my dad was always showing me like Bruce Lee films, because it was like a big place where an Asian man wasn't subservient to anybody. He was the hero. He was the main character, and I think that was my first exposure to martial arts. And I've always enjoyed it because of that. Um, my grandfather was a third-degree black belt in Kodokan Judo, and my father was a second-degree black belt. And unfortunately, I didn't do a lot of training directly under them. My grandfather and I would play around here and there, but nothing ever serious. And yet, I still learned, through that play. And my dad, he's not a really good communicator, and so later on, after I left the house, I would use the martial arts as a way to kind of understand my father without having to talk to him, since he wasn't a talker in the first place. So kind of did a season of wrestling in junior high, won like 1 or 2 matches, got destroyed all the other times.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got into college, I started up a little club with all my friends called Kung Fu and Gratuitous Violence Theater, where every weekend we'd go over to the local VHF video store and rent a video, and we'd all watch together and just enjoy the gratuitous violence. Well, we eventually had rented everything there was, and the only thing left was this thing called the UFC, which touted itself as being real fighting, not make-believe, and not Hollywood stuff, actual fights with no rules. And so we decided, okay, well, we've seen everything else, let's watch this. And I saw it and was hooked. I'd never seen anything like it in my entire life. I was blown away that someone that was smaller than these other opponents was able to subdue them and make them submit. And that was probably early 90s as well, and that's when my training began in earnest. Like Brandon, I was going to college at Utah State University, and there wasn't any jiu-jitsu schools up there. So the only thing I could find was a Taekwondo school whose instructor also did a Japanese style of jiu-jitsu and kind of incorporated that into his lessons and had basically an open mind about cross-training and doing different things, and that's how I got my feet wet. Graduated college, and there wasn't any work to be had in Logan, so moved to Salt Lake or the Salt Lake City area, and decided I wanted to, look for someone who was qualified to really teach a cross-training mixed style. This was before they called it MMA. It was called no holds barred, Valley Tudo in some places, but there wasn't any MMA schools. And so I looked and I did my research, and I wanted to train with the best, and the names that always came to the top of the list were, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Machado Jiu-Jitsu, Ajahn Chai Sirsa for Muay Thai, and Gurdan Inosaka for Jeet Kune Do, and the only person I could find in the area that had those credentials and teaching certifications to teach those arts was a guy by the name of Will Bernales, and that's actually where I came to meet Brandon, and where our friendship began, because we were the only two that really took it as seriously as we did, and kind of recognized that, I think, in each other from day one. And it's funny because here we are, like 14, 15 years later, and we're the only two left that started at that time. They're still left and still studying. I studied Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Crew Will, got my Thai boxing certification through him under Ajahn Chai, tested directly into Ajahn, got my coaching certification under Sensei Paulson, directly from Sensei, but through Crew Will, and I'm continue to work on my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in Professor Sauer Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, also studying Kali, Silat, and JKD. And I think that's pretty. What else? Did I leave anything out? I think that kind of brings us to date. That's where we are now. Just got back from a lesson, to be honest.
And are all those styles used in damage control, like the Silat and JKD? I didn't know that you had trained in those. Do you?
Yeah, you'll see pepperings of them in there. We actually released a damage control video on the public YouTube channel where we did an adaptation of Bruce Lee's pendulum kick, um, and an entry into the trapping range. I don't think we've shown a lot of CLAT publicly. We don't have a ton of it in our in the members area of damage control, but there are aspects, there's stuff in there, and in fact, there's a lot of. I think CLAT is kind of it's the last frontier. There's a lot of value there, and there's a lot of things that people could use in the world of professional MMA that they're just too they're too close-minded to see, which is kind of funny since it is a mixed martial arts. But even to this day, there's kind of a stigma that there are only 2 or 3 really valid arts, and everything else is kind of fantasy land. And I've never had that belief. I've always kind of kept my mind open to what's out there.
Okay. And so what would you guys say about martial arts would make you inspire, like, dedicate your lives to it? Like, Brandon, you said you've been training for over 20 years. You guys have made damage control. You have your own academy together. Like, what about it that draws your passion towards it?
Oh, man, that's such a deep question, you know. It could be something far deeper and out of my view that I'm not even aware of, something from my childhood or some sort of, early on insecurity about being able to take care of myself that led me down that path. But I mean, the simple and short answer nowadays is it's just the only sport or activity I've ever done that I just absolutely loved. I've never related to anybody that ever said they got burned out on it, or I mean, there's times where I want to train harder and more often than others, but it just always felt right from the beginning of this journey that this was going to be a lifelong pursuit for me. I don't know. I've never. Maybe a psychologist could answer that better, but for myself,
it's just what you love.
Like I said, the short answer is I just love it, man. I know that's sort of a cop out, but
that's fine. That's what I would say too. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to like put words into why I love it so much.
Yeah, I've dabbled in other things that have been passions of other people, and I've just never had the same feeling about anything, skiing or other sports or other activity. I just don't get it. Martial arts is like the only thing I get.
And would you say the same thing, Brian?
I think I can put a little bit more of a finger on my particular interest in it. I think that I remember watching Choke, which is a documentary of Dixon Gracie's preparation and fights in, I think, in 1998 or something. I can't remember what year, but he was fighting Vale Tudo, Japan, and I remember him saying, jiu-jitsu is having without jiu-jitsu would be worse than living with both my legs cut off, because it's all of my philosophy, it's my whole universe is viewed through the eyes of a martial artist. Like, I understand life through the arts. I learned so much about living a fulfilling, gratifying, wholesome life because of my experience in the martial arts. An example would be one of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard from one of my instructors came from a black belt named Mike Diaz in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he said to me, Brian, sometimes all you can do is play defense, and sometimes all you should do is play defense. And it's when you try to do more than that, when you get overextended and you end up getting tapped. And he's like, and that applies to life. So, like, that's these people, or, it would be myself, where, like, cash gets strapped, things get tight, and I should just be playing defense, I should be finding ways to eliminate spending and tighten, cinch the waistband a little bit, tighten the belt, and and live frugally, as opposed to maxing out another credit card, buying a new car. And it's kind of funny. I mean, Brandon and I have there are a lot of martial arts gyms in and around us. Some of them with marble floors and showers, and what do they call those, high atmosphere chambers and all this stuff. And it's like, you look at them, and these are the same guys that when they got it all built then claimed bankruptcy and never paid any of the people that they hired to do all that work, and then started a new company and just a new ownership, but it's the same people doing the same thing in a shady way. And it's like we don't have all that. We've got a pretty basic, bare bones Spartan gym, but it's all paid for, and we've never defaulted on anybody, and we've always paid everybody what they were worth for what we have. And to me, that's a fulfilling thing. And we've never been overextended, and we've never got ourselves in trouble in debt or any of these other things. And that's just one small example, but it's I hope it illustrates kind of like the life lessons that I've learned and continue to learn, and try to share with my students and continue to learn myself. There's so much to learn, that there's so many things that you can approach. Whether it's, I can remember doing job interviews and approaching it the same way as I approach a fight, with total preparation, total confidence, and going in there with a kill or be killed mentality. Like, I won't be denied. I won't be, I won't be turned away. I'm not going to go down without a fight.
So you'd say like the real life application and how it affects your.
That would be one thing, and then the other thing is, I guess the other for sure is the friendships I've made. I've made better friends in the arts than I've made anywhere else in my life, and in fact, I quite frankly don't hang out and don't trust people. I don't trust myself to hang out with people that I don't train with, because it's like you get so accustomed to having that faith that that guy's going to take care of you. I mean, he's putting you in neck cranks, he's putting you in leg locks, he's choking you, he's doing all these things. You literally put your life in his hands, and he puts his in yours. And once you can trust someone with that, it's like all the other stuff's just details. And then when your friendship's built on that foundation, it's hard to go wrong. And I've met some of the best people in the world through martial arts, and I think that's another aspect that I really enjoy and keeps me interested and involved in it.
Yeah, I could absolutely agree with that. The brotherhood of it is probably one of my favorite things about training with people. So, could you guys tell me the story of like what inspired you to create Damage Control? Like how did it come to be?
Well, as you could tell from those last two responses, the great mind of Yamasaki, and somebody who has a master's degree in philosophy versus a guy that just thinks this stuff's cool. What do you love about this stuff? I don't know. I just love it. Man, Yamasaki. I'm sure he can expand on this, but I know probably my biggest motivation about Damage Control. Kind of a precursor to Damage Control was a DVD I made, and some of my close friends who were anticipating the release of this instructional DVD were eager to see which of the most flashy techniques I was going to try and show on this particular project. And when it came out, I got some response from people saying, "Wow, you didn't really even teach anything on that. All you did was let your friends beat up on you and throw you around." And that sort of is the spirit of Damage Control, in the sense that it started really as a way to introduce the world and our martial art community to people that we always looked up to. I mean, that was always the big driving force. Was like, I just think there's so many cool people that I've learned so much cool stuff from, and I just want everybody else to see these people that I think are so cool. And that's always kind of been a format of the Damage Control business plan too. Is if we put the footage, we never charge anybody for any material that is provided to us by these people that we look up to. And so when somebody gets a membership to Damage Control, they're paying for the techniques that are taught by Yamasaki and myself. But out there, to promote these people that we look up to is where they're going to find the free material that's out there for the whole public to see, and that usually is done with the intention of driving more people towards those people that we've got so much gratitude for. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums mine up. I mean, I think that one of my goals was that when I started seeing, I feel like MMA started really getting a foothold and kind of becoming more and more accepted and sought after as an entertainment sport was after the Ultimate Fighter, and it was I felt kind of it was mixed emotions because I had been telling friends and family and people for a long time about how special, how important I felt like the whole movement was, and at the same time it was a bittersweet moment because after watching them how they promoted it and how the people that they picked and what the producers did to make it what they would think would be interesting, having people pee on each other's pillows and play with poo-poo in the toilet. I was sickened. It was disgusting to me, and it was disgusting that I would be represented by these people. And so my objective through Damage Control was to expose more people to the people that made me see magic in the martial art. Guys like Sensei Paulson, guys like Crew Will and Ajahn Chai and Greg Nelson and all of these people. Billy Robinson came up later on, but he is of the exact same caliber, just a gentleman and someone who would train men to be champions of life, both in and out of the ring, and that's what our objective my objective was to show a different side of MMA, one that wasn't always a guy mad dogging around, dropping F-bombs every other word, slapping his girlfriends around, living the life, I guess. I mean, that's not ever what attracted me to it, and it definitely wasn't what kept me to it. And all the people that I had mentioned never, ever glorified or glamorized any of that aspect. They always looked down on it, and any chance that we had to get more people exposed to these excellent instructors and pioneers in these arts, and hopefully influence them in that positive way. That was ultimately what my goal was with the YouTube part of Damage Control.
And can you tell me the story of how you guys met and eventually became business partners for so long? You said you've known each other for 15 years now, right?
Yeah, practically been married. I guess we used to joke about that all the time, but that was during a time where everyone knew we weren't serious. Nowadays, we got to watch ourselves because they might take us seriously, and that's not the case. But we met through Will at our instructor's gym, and like I said before, it was just like we're probably the only two that really took it as seriously as we do, and again built that trust on the mats. Competing against each other, trying to always best each other, and to this day we're trying to always outdo each other and tap each other out and get the last laugh in a punching and kicking exchange. And because of that trust, I think that was the foundation, and then just kind of I already had my own school, and bringing Brandon on board and trusting that was just kind of everything else kind of fell into place after that.
And did you have your own school before you created Damage Control, or after?
Long before.
Before?
Yes.
Okay, and so would you say that Damage Control is like an online representation of your school?
I'm interested to hear what Kaiser has to say about this, because I don't know. I've got my own answer for sure. Oh, man, that's a tough one. There's a part of me that, Damage Control has evolved, and there is a business side to it now, being that we sell that we provide a service that we sell membership to, has some influence over its evolution. So it may have just started as a fun project in a way to introduce our instructors to the world and shed a different light on MMA. that's its roots and its foundation. But now there is. We have to look at it from a business perspective too now, which says, what do we need to provide to make this a value to people and something that people want to pay money for?
Mm-hmm.
So, is it a representation of what goes on here? I know I have certainly shared in the member section of Damage Control my most treasured techniques or perspectives on fighting, and I also do that here in the school. So in that sense, I'd have to say that it is a representation of what happens at Mushin, especially I would say in the members section, which, like I distinguished before, is more of just what Yamasaki and I teach versus the guests that we feature on Damage Control. So I guess another way to look at it is we feature a lot of people on Damage Control who may show things that you'll never see here at Mushin. And then on the flip side, I know I teach the things on there that I feel are my best material. So yes and no. How's that for an answer?
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's good.
I agree with Brandon. I think that there's definitely a lot of stuff on there that. Go ahead. If you don't mind, Kai's just going to give some instruction. Our class has just started, so he's going to give them some direction, and then I'll just kind of, we'll switch off he and I between the answers. But
okay, that's fine.
I'm trying to think what I was going to say. There's a lot of my heart and soul in a lot of the stuff I've shown on Damage Control as well. A lot of my own personal ideas on things and my takes, just like it would in Mushin, in our Mushin gym. There are a few things that I have not shared in Damage Control that I do share in my own gym, and it's just actually out of respect to other guys that have published that material. An example would be Greg Nelson, who's just done some phenomenal work in the Thai clinch and MMA clinching, and I've never seen anything come close to touching it in the DVD video online world. And being a guy that's gone and traveled and taken seminars and studied under him, I feel like I've earned the I don't want to say right, but I've earned my teaching of it in my school. But I don't want to repost that on the online internet world, where I feel like I don't want to take away and plagiarize from what he's done up there. Another example would be the rubber guard. We just did a series when we talked about our version of the guard, of which there's a lot of we really like the rubber guard system and a lot of the stuff out there, but we didn't really go into depth about here's the move from here to here to here, just because, out of respect to Eddie Bravo and what he's pioneered out there and his material. And we've just said, hey, look, this is the basic idea. This is how we do it. But to go into depth, it'd be best for you to go and look at the original article and find it that way. Whereas in class, we'll talk about, okay, step by step, here's how to do it. But even then, it's not, here's a rubber guard system, 10th planet system. It's, here's our interpretation of that and how we like to use it in the way we approach MMA and submission wrestling or fighting.
Okay. And so how do you decide which moves and styles to demonstrate in the program?
What was that?
I said, how do you decide which moves and styles to demonstrate in the program?
You want to grab that one? That's a tough question. I think Yamasaki sort of touched on that. I mean,
Yeah.
We've debated this for years about whether or not there are secret techniques, and I've even flip-flopped on this subject a number of times, and regardless of where I stand on the topic now, I respect that some people do feel like there's secret techniques out there, and I certainly have always made an effort to not expose something that somebody shared with me in confidence. that being said, if somebody shows me something that I've seen 20 different times from 20 different people in a very similar manner, I'm certainly more inclined to, say this is an armbar. It's not a secret; everybody knows an armbar. But
Yeah.
I just do my best to try and respect the source of the information, where I got it from, and how I think that person would feel about the information going out there. I certainly would never claim to invent or make up a technique or pioneer a technique, but which is suicide for anybody who wants to have any kind of online teaching presence. But there are certainly things that you come across, after years of training that you feel like, this is something that is really something I put together. I pieced it together in this way that I do it. There might be a million other people doing it this way, but nobody showed it to me just like this in this sequence or from this perspective. And, that's the stuff I get most excited about sharing. One, because I think it's different and it's unique to me, at least from what I can tell. And so that, stuff that's unique to us that I feel like is a real expression of our take on things, I guess, would be the stuff I like to show the most. And, on the other end of the scale, stuff that is that for somebody else being the things that I would avoid the most.
Okay, and so would you say, what was that?
I was just going to say, I think my comments would mirror Kaiser's for the most part, and then the only other thing would be, then you have your certain techniques that they're just foundational, they're fundamental. An Oakland mount escape, knee escape from the mount, it's like you don't know those two things, you're not doing jiu-jitsu, you're not even grappling. You've got to cover those things. They're so they're so prevalent and so fundamental. How to shrimp, how to bridge, how to duck walk, how to chest pummel. Those things are so foundational. You'll find a lot of that type of stuff in our program.
Mm-hmm. And so, would you say damage control is meant to be more of a substitute for in-person training or a supplement?
I would say both. I mean, if given a choice, I think it works best as a supplement. I've had a lot of members say that, hey, I study over at Renzo Gracie's academy, and obviously he's fantastic. But everybody knows the moves that I'm trying to do because we all learn them together in the same class, and so they stifle them, and then they come on here and they get a little different take on it, or see maybe the way Catch would approach it, and then all of a sudden they're trying to catch up to what I'm doing. And so in that regard, I think that's where it works best and where it shines. But we also have guys from, say, like Denmark or mainland China. They're like kind of where we were 20 years ago. We're like, this is awesome stuff. But there's no MMA gyms around here, let alone, there are hardly any Kung Fu gyms because of the politics and this and that. And I'm 100 miles from the nearest Shaolin temple, and so this is all I got. And so for that guy, I think it works great. It's definitely better than nothing, and we've put a lot of time and effort into making a comprehensive system, and we still have a lot of work to do, but at this point, I think we have over 300 videos, and we've covered a lot of the very common situations and positions and the games that get played from those positions.
And who would you say would benefit the most from it?
Either. Like I said, if you have a brick and mortar gym to study at, I would absolutely do that and use it as a supplement. But if we have a lot of Texans, and I guess there's just not a lot of gyms in a state as far as the rural parts of Texas. And for that guy, it works great because he doesn't have anything else. He's just got a couple buddies. They get together on the weekends and they watch a video and then they'll work on it together. And I think for those guys, it works great as a primary source of training because they have no other choice.
Yeah, definitely. So, Could you tell me your future plans for damage control and how you plan to have it evolve over the next 2 years?
Man, everything I read about business and philosophy and you know anything on that subject says you better have a clear vision of where you're going if you want to get there. So Yamasaki, we better come up with something quick, man. Damage control certainly continues to grow, and we continue to feed it material and content to do so. There's a lot of stuff, on the business side or on the technical, on the back end side, being that it's an online based business that is, things that need to be done that are like not my area of expertise, and we have a great staff that works on that stuff who, reports to us every month and tells us all the things they're doing to continue growing the business. As far as directly what we are doing, I think we're going to keep doing what we've always done on the content side and just keep learning, stay open-minded, keep seeking out, interactions with great instructors. We continue even after all these years and having, sort of the people we look up to, we continue to introduce new characters to damage control all the time. There's Phil Norman and his GOAT system. We recently just featured on damage control, and that's like a boxing striking system that's, getting very popular right now, and I'm seeing that popping up all over the place. And we were one of the first people to, introduce that.
We were some of the first people to bring to light Billy Robinson and catch wrestling. In fact, at the time when we had started publishing that stuff, that was either right during or shortly after Eddie Bravo had put up a fake website mocking catch wrestling at the time. And here we are, a decade later. Coach Billy has passed, and Josh Barnett just submitted Dean Lister by a catch. And it's just, like Kaiser said, we try to bring those guys to the light, out of the shadows and into the light, or maybe they're out and about and they're well known in their own circles, but we try to expose them to more people. And I think that also one of our goals is to get more actual personal contact with our members. We'd love to have them fly into our Mushin gym and do some camps here, as well as travel and do some seminars around the country. And even we've reached out to guys like Sam Cresson under the Scientific Wrestling banner, and I've kind of teased the idea with Riley Bodycomb and his Sambo guy and the Sambo guys about doing kind of like a jam session where, it's a seminar, but it's more like, okay, and this is stuff that we're just kind of throwing out there. We haven't gotten traction on it, but it is a goal. It would be like to say, hey, all right, Riley, throw something out there. Put a move on the table. Let's see what you got. And then he throws something out there, and then we say, okay, Sam, flow. Build on it. Build on what Riley just did. And then Brandon would jump out, do what he did, add something, and I might add my 2 cents, and then just kind of riff and see what happens. And I think it would be a lot of fun, and that would be something that I'd love to do and film and also expose people to.
Okay, and this should be my last question. So damage control is obviously pretty popular. You've got over 22,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel. Where would you say that you have an edge over your competitors that are doing something similar? Is there anything that you would say makes damage control unique?
I think the biggest thing, more than anything else, is Brandon. First of all, Brandon and I, like a lot of the other things that are out there, and I don't actually even think that we're all that successful or popular. I mean, look at our subscribers versus like the Submissions 101. Look at. I'm a big fan of a guy named Nuttin Fancy. He's a fellow Utah, and he does gear review and tactical shooting and just different adventure videos and stuff. And that guy gets hundreds of thousands of views overnight, and we'll be lucky to get a couple thousand for a video we posted in a year. So I don't know. I definitely don't think that we're necessarily all that popular or big. I would like to be. I would aspire for it to be successful, but I don't necessarily think that we're any more successful than the next guy. But there are some things we do differently, and those are, namely, one, it's a dynamic duo. It's something. I think that the two of us bring something to the table that no individual could. There's the interaction between us that I think keeps things fresh. And Brandon has his own views on things and his own approach and his own. There are things that he really grooves on that I'm kind of like, no, and vice versa. And there are things that we both dig on and things that we both really don't like. And I think that all of that adds to the mix, and it makes it an interesting thing to watch. And then finally, I should speak for the both of us, but I think I do when I say that I think we don't, again, approach it like we're the world's God's gift to MMA, the best MMA guys in the world. In fact, we try to let the guests be in the forefront, and we just kind of take a step back behind them and let them shine. And I think that's something that I don't think there's a lot of other channels that approach things in that way. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, he hit everything I would say.
Okay, great. So, is there anything that you guys would like to say to anybody that would be interested in training at Damage Control? Any of my viewers that would be watching this interview?
We'd love to see you there. We'd love to have you guys participate in our forums and ask questions. We'd love to hear when people are trying our stuff, and we love to hear when it works, and we also love to hear when it fails. We always say here at our gym that something fails is of no consequence. It's really not important. How something fails is everything. So once you find out how it fails, it's a simple matter of air trapping and problem solving to find out how to make it work or how to build your game off of that initial move. And we just love to see you guys at Damage Control. We really appreciate the support. We feel like we've had some great members that keep us going and inspire us to keep going. And we just appreciate them and tell them how much we love them, I guess.
Okay, great. All right, so that'll be all. Thank you very much for your time, guys. All right, have a good night.
Appreciate it. You too.